The U.S. Marshal Service already tracked more than 540 threats against all federal judges this year.
Those are acts of intimidation. Those are threats. We have to have our political leaders from the top down begin to be responsible with the language they use.
Let's watch Jake Tapper covering how Trump's inflammatory rhetoric and narratives about judges is now spilling over into violence, surprise, surprise, as the right tries to sell themselves as the party of peace. So take a moment, leave us a like on the video if you can. It helps us out a ton. We really appreciate it. And let's get right into the discussion and see what we can add.
With the rise in political violence in the United States, judges are on the front lines, increasingly facing death threats. The U.S. Marshal Service already tracked more than 540 threats against all federal judges this year, surpassing all 12 months of the previous year. Threats against state judges aren't even tracked. A father involved in a custody case, for example, sent this graphic simulated attack video depicting a murder with an axe of a Florida judge. He's now behind bars for 15 years. He was convicted of making several threats. We're joined by U.S. District Judge Esther Salas, who was physically targeted in a deadly attack at her house that tragically killed her son Daniel and seriously wounded her husband. She's brave enough to join us today as a guest. Thank you so much, Judge Salas. Judge, what do we need to do as a society to tone down the dehumanizing rhetoric?
You know, I think that the Utah governor, Governor Cox, has said it best. We have to learn to disagree better. We have to have our political leaders from the top down begin to be responsible with the language they use.
She is spot on. It all starts from the top down. Anyone being pragmatic would tell you that. To pretend the problem is some random blue-haired liberals on X and not the president of the United States and his daily rhetoric is just an insane level of deflection. And we see this in the exact violence types that we see increasing: attacks on judges increasing, hate crimes increasing. A Democratic lawmaker and her husband just last month or 2 months ago were shot, or 3 months ago now, it's October, were shot and killed in Minnesota by an anti-abortion Trump guy. I mean, it literally never ends. And it starts with the man who single-handedly benefits the most from this sort of rhetoric being normalized, Donald Trump, as it birthed his entire political career, and not anyone could say that it didn't, which is why I'm afraid that we'll never tone it down, because it starts with him and it only politically hurts him to do so. So why would he ever do it, especially when his base allows him to get away with endlessly just blaming Democrats for it?
Your fellow judges received pizza deliveries with your son's name on the order, and whoever ordered the pizza was undoubtedly trying to terrify your colleagues by telling them essentially, we know where you live, and invoking his name. Have they been able to track down those individuals?
You know, unfortunately, Mr. Tapper, I don't have a lot of information to share with you. I mean, we started seeing a rise in these threats to judges by the way of pizza deliveries, that when you hear it, it sort of sounds non-threatening, but these are pizzas that are going to judges' houses at odd hours of the night. And in 20 instances, they bared, the delivery bore my son's name, Daniel Anderl, on it. Those judges are being told, we know where you live. Some of these pizzas were going to their children's homes.
And I think the difference is when you step back and you put this in perspective. If it's someone on the left doing this sort of violence or supporting it, even cheering it on, they have to look around and see the entirety of the elected officials on their side condemning that sort of thing, being ostracized by 80 to 90% of the voters within the party, becoming a complete black swan. However, if you do this kind of violence or support it on the right, you get support. You get the likes of Elon Musk in your corner, seemingly, as he calls for a civil war. You get Donald Trump egging it on a national platform. J.D. Vance ignoring what you're doing and blaming it entirely on the left. 70-80% of the voting base in the party ignoring it or supporting it. There's much less mechanisms for accountability on the right, which is why, to me, we see it spill over into violence far more often than we do on the left. I mean, there's just not the same social consequences that might stop them before the legal ones.
Those are acts of intimidation. Those are threats. And by the way, pizzas are being delivered to state court judges too, Mr. Tapper. The problem is we don't know how many threats state judges are getting because there's no central repository for this information. That's why Speak Up for Justice, a nonpartisan group that I'm part of, we're trying to shed light, not heat, on the issues facing state and federal judges all throughout this country.
It's appalling to me that MAGA can stoke this kind of violence against so many groups, minority groups often, but judges as well, like politicians, and just get away with it, right? I mean, Charlie Kirk just had a day named after him. The idea that someone like that could have a day named after him is crazy. He spewed the exact same kind of hatred and division. When you sow hate as a politic, you get violence as a consequence. And these people are knowing arbiters in that. They saw the opening that Trump created in 2016, and they built off of it every single day, and they're enjoying the power that they've gotten from it, which is why they're drunk off of it and aren't going to stop. Realizing we could just point the finger and deny it until eternity, and by the time they realize, at least our pockets will be lined and we'll be rich, so who cares what's left of America then? You fell for it, MAGA. Maybe you should open your eyes and realize it.